डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन युनिव्हर्सिटी.
Dear students, welcome to the Chaitanya studio of Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Myself Dr. Shivang Patel, Associate Professor at Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Today we are going to start from the first unit, Unit 1, Basics of Linux. Now in today's session, the agenda is, after completion of this session, you will able to understand or you will be able to know the basic architecture of Linux operating system. Then you can use the basic Linux commands and you can obtain the information about whatever the command that we are going to use in the Linux operating system. Now introduction part. So in this subject operating system, the first two blocks that you have already seen, that what is operating system, what are the tasks of operating system. So basically you already aware that the operating system is nothing but the interface between the user and the computer hardware or the devices. Suppose any user wants to use any of the hardware devices, first of all there is a requirement of any platform, and that is nothing but the operating system, that you already aware. In your previous two blocks that you have seen, various functions or various features of the operating system, that memory management, process management, input output, device management, all these that can be managed by the operating system. Now some popular operating system, these are the examples: Linux, Mac, Windows, Android, that you already aware. These are the basic operating system. In block 3 and 4 we are focusing on the Unix or Linux operating system, which are the basic commands that can be used in that Linux operating system, and based on these commands we have to create programming, and that programming is nothing but the shell programming, in which we are going to use these Linux basic commands as well as some advanced command. If we are talking about specifically the Linux, so this is the open source operating system, and it was first published at 1991 by Linus Torvalds. Now it is distributed under the open source license. Now what is the meaning of open source license? So whenever the some of the developers or whatever the community, they are combining together and jointly create some code, then it is the open source. So whatever the available code that can be used as it is, and some modification that can be done in that code, and you can create your own program, you can create your own software based on whatever the originality available. So you can modify your code without any licensing. That's why it is called the open source. Now this Linux, or you can say that the Unix operating system, basically this can be developed for computers, embedded devices, servers, mobile devices. As you already aware that various devices, automated devices nowadays are available. Say for example AC, washing machine, or home appliances, and many more. All those devices you can automate or you can program by using this operating system. Now some of the popular Linux operating system, that is Ubuntu, Red Hat, Debian Linux. These are all the basic example of Linux operating system. Now we are going to start basic components of this Linux operating system. In previous two blocks we have seen the basic components of operating system. In this block we are going to focus on the Linux operating system. So basically Linux operating system having three components, primary components. First one is the kernel. You are I think aware with the two terms kernel and shell. So kernel is the heart of operating system. Whatever the commands that you are going to execute, the responsible thing, that is kernel. Kernel is responsible to execute any of the command in the Linux operating system or the Unix operating system. So whenever you are giving any of the command to execute, or the user interact with the shell or some interaction platform, then that command that can be executed by this kernel platform. So kernel is nothing but the core of the operating system, you can say that. That is the first component. Second one is the system library. So system library is nothing but the collection of program, or you can say that the special routines in which the application program or system utilities which uses the kernel features. So whatever the features available by the kernel, if you want to use those features, you can use that system libraries. So you can directly access whatever the inbuilt features available by the kernel for that Linux operating system. You already aware that in Windows you are using many programming languages. If you want to use some of the features directly, you don't want to create, you don't want to develop from scratch, then you can directly import those features from the system. The same thing is here. By using system library, you can import the features and that can be available or by the kernel system. This is the second component. And the third component is system utility. It is nothing but the task specific utility. You already aware in the Windows operating system, in control panel you are using add remove program, or say for example you are changing the date and time, you can change the calendar, you are executing the antivirus facilities. So some of the specific tasks, some of the specific system utilities, if you want to execute, then this is the third component in the Linux operating system, just like in the Windows operating system. So it is a specialized individual level task that can be managed by the system utilities. You can see here in the pictorial representation the interaction of hardware that can be managed by the kernel, and the system libraries that can use that kernel. And if user want to use that libraries, if a user want to create some program and use some system libraries, then these libraries that can be available to the user or to the application, and those library that can deal with kernel, and you can execute your program or your software. Now the basic features of Linux operating system, as you already aware in the previous blocks, you have seen various functions of operating system that is generalized, but we are focusing here in Linux operating system. So these are some of the features that I have listed. This is not the limited, but these are some basic features. First one is the portable. So portable, that you already know, that the mobility feature, or say for example you are creating a program, you are creating some code, that code can be able to execute on multiple platforms in which that kernel that can be available. So whenever you are creating a code that you can able to execute from one machine to another machine, the only thing is that that platform is supportable by that kernel only. So that's why it is considered as the portable. Now it is open source. There is no requirement of any licensing, third party license that you have to agree. Open source, multiple user can work on a same platform, modify the code and create the new software, create the new system with the help of which is already available with the Linux. That's why it is the open source. Multi-user, that is the another feature. So here you already aware that basically if we are classify the operating system in terms of usability, so there is one single user operating system and multi-user operating system. In single user, you already aware that only one user can access the system at a time. Here the Linux, Windows, all those are operating system that are multi-user operating system, in which multiple user can share whatever the resource is available. So resource is not specifically available to a single user, but it can be used by the multiple user. That's why it is considering as multi-user operating system. Then after multi-programming, not only the single task that can be executed, but multiple tasks you can perform or you can execute at the same time. That's why the feature called multi-programming, that is of Linux operating system. Another feature, that is hierarchical file system. So if you are knowing that in Windows, so everything you can create by using the folders, subfolders, directories, and in Linux operating system, each and everything that will deal with the file system. Say for example, you are considering the input output devices, say for example monitor, keyboard, mouse. So any of the hardware devices that are also treated as a file system. So there is a standard file system available that we will discuss in the subsequent modules and subsequent units, that Linux follows some standard file system, and the root file or the root directory, that is the base on for all the files available in this Linux operating system. Then after the shell, So we have already discussed the kernel. So it is the heart of the operating system. Now suppose you want to execute any of the command. So that execution that can be done by the kernel. But suppose you want to explain which command you want to execute. So your system cannot understand your language. So that intermediate platform or some interface is required, that is nothing but the shell. So shell is working as an interpreter. Whatever the command given by the user, that can interpret and given to the kernel. Now the responsibility of kernel is it will execute that command. Whatever the output generated by the kernel, that will be passed to the shell. Now again shell will interpret in the human understandable form and it will directly interact with the user. So shell is nothing but the interface between the user and the kernel. Whatever the command you want to execute, you can give that command to the shell. Shell will interpret it and assign to the kernel. Whatever the output, that will be again passed on to the shell and shell will communicate with the user. So that is the important task. Then after the security. So security, multiple files or multiple writes that can be given in the Linux operating system. There is multiple commands also that are based on these security issues, passwords and many other protections that can be available. So you can encrypt your data, you can protect your data, you can protect your file with the help of this operating system. Again another feature is available in the Linux operating system. You can give or rights based on the user. Administrative right, that is you can give by using the super command. Then other normal users are also there. So you can bifurcate whatever the access rights for particular folder, particular file or particular drive or system. You can manage with easily with some of the commands in the Linux, that we will see all the commands in the subsequent units also. So it is the secure operating system. So these are the basic features that we have seen. Now we are moving with the Linux system architecture. So each and every operating system having their predefined architecture. Same way the Linux has its own architecture. So you can see here in the figure, basically multiple layers are there. If you want to use any of the command, if you want to use any of the application, if you want to run any of the software to the hardware or the system. So these are the layers that will divide multiple tasks. First of all, the outer side, the user, multiple users are there. As you already aware that Linux is a multi-user operating system. So user 1, 2, 3 up to n, multiple user can interact with the application. So with the help of application. So application or compiler or the command, the user will interact with the system. Now system is what? System understand those command or system understand whatever the application give the command with the help of shell that we have seen. So shell, that is the intermediate part. Whatever the command given by the user in the form of commands or in the form of application. So those commands that can be interpreted by the shell, that shell convert those commands into machine understandable form, and that commands that can be executed or passed first of all to the kernel, and then after kernel will execute those commands and kernel will interact with the hardware. Say for example, you are going to execute a command called date that will give you current date and time. So that command will interpreted by the shell first of all, then it will assign or pass to the kernel. Kernel will execute that command by interacting with the system. System date and time that will be fetched. Whatever the components required to communicate, or whether it can be any hardware component, that all communication that can be done by the kernel, execution can be done by the kernel, and the output finally that will be passed to the shell. Again shell will interpret that output and passed or assigned to the user. So that is the whole structure, you can say that the architecture of Linux operating system. Now the basic Linux usage, in this topic we will see the basic commands, very basic commands that can be used in the Linux operating system. In the subsequent unit we will see some advanced commands also. So how to start? First of all, in Windows it is the graphical user interface. In Linux it is also variations are available. You can use graphical user interface, you can also commands. Same way in the Windows you can use graphical user, you can use the command prompt. So in the Linux operating system, suppose you want to use some basic commands, you can use the terminal, just like a command prompt in Windows, right? So in Windows, any of the command you can execute with the help of command prompt. Same way here, you can execute any of the command in character user interface with the help of the terminal. It's just like the black screen that you have already aware with the Windows operating system. Another option is that you are having multiple operating system like Red Hat Linux is there, Ubuntu is there, Fedora is there. So you can install that operating system in your system. So multiple operating system that can be also run on your laptop or on your desktop system. You have to install that operating system separately by partitioning the hard disk. If you don't want to partition your hard disk, then there is an option called VirtualBox that is available. So you can install first that VirtualBox or VMware software, and then after you can install that Ubuntu or Red Hat or Kali Linux, whatever the requirement, accordingly you can install in that virtual environment. So you are just starting the Windows, and then after you have to execute that VirtualBox, and then you can use Ubuntu, Red Hat or any of the operating systems. So these are the alternatives you can access that Linux operating system. Now if we want to execute the basic command, you are requiring the terminal first, that black screen that you are wearing with the Windows operating system. So you can also use any of the emulator in Windows operating system also. Nowadays multiple emulators are there and multiple editors are there. They are giving the features, they are giving the facilities to allow you to run Linux commands on the Windows platform. So if you don't want to install the whole operating system, whole Linux operating system on the Windows or any other partition, in that case you are having one alternative. You can just simply install that particular emulator and you can able to use whatever the basic commands of the Linux. So whenever you are launching that particular terminal, that is the black screen, you can see such kind of prompt that ended with the $sign. So the prompt indicates whatever the user logged in into that particular system, that prompt information that is available based on that user logged in and whatever the you are executing in which with the current directory. $prompt that indicates that now you can enter any of the command, now the screen or the terminal is ready to take input. So this terminal is the same as the Windows that we have discussed as the command prompt. Now important thing is that all the commands in the Linux are case sensitive. So mind well, whatever the functionality for that, whatever the command you are using, that commands are case sensitive. So you are writing in the small letter and the writing in the capital letter, both having some different meaning. So if you are writing some command in the small letter and the same command you are using in the capital letter, it may be possible that the Linux system doesn't understand because it is the case sensitive. So you have to use the command as it is, the syntax you must have to follow. Now whenever you are writing some of the command and then after you have to execute with the help of pressing the enter key. So whenever you are pressing the enter key, that command will execute and give the output. Now what are the basic structure, or you can say that the syntax of that command. So whatever the command you want to execute, you can enter directly after this $sign or whatever the prompt available on the terminal. Now options and arguments, these are two in the square bracket, these are the optional. Not all the commands that can have that options and argument, but if you want to execute the command in general, you can just simply write the command name. But suppose you are requiring some filtration, you are requiring some specific feature, in that case you have to apply that particular options and the argument. So you can get the exact output, you can get the exact result, whatever you are requiring. So these two are the optionals, options and the arguments. Now general purpose Linux commands. So in this unit we are going to see these are the basic general purpose command: pwt, date, who, password, man. These are the basic command that we are going to see in this unit. Now the first command we are starting with the pwd. So PWD, that is nothing but the print working directory, or you can say that the present working directory. So whenever you are giving this command, whenever you are executing this command, the prompt will give you, or the output, that is nothing but the current directory in which the user is currently working. So you can see here on the screen, that is the terminal, just black screen that we have discussed in the Windows operating system command prompt. Same way here in the Linux operating system, that is a terminal. So here dollar sign that represent, you can enter any of the command, and then after, if you want to execute that command, you have to press enter. So our first command, you have to write pwd, that is print working directory. Whenever you are pressing the enter, you can see here the output is given /home/pcr. So it will indicate this is the current directory in which the user is working right now. So slash is nothing but the root directory. In Linux operating system, any directory structure that starts with the slash, and slash that is indicated by the root. The detailed structure of the file system that we will see in the next unit. Right now, you can understand that the slash, that is nothing but the root directory, or you can say that it is the parent, and currently I am working in the PCR directory. So pwd, that gives you the present working directory in which currently you are working. This will give the whole path as we have discussed, slash, then after home, and then after the username. Whatever the username, accordingly the prompt that may change. The ultimate thing is that whenever the dollar you can see, you can write any of the command, or you can say that that system or the prompt or the terminal is ready to input for any of the command. As we have discussed, / that indicates the root directory. This is the example that we have see also with the demo. If you are entering pwd, it will show you the current working directory, home, and the user. Here the general name is given user. You are logged in with some specific name, so it will indicate that username also here. Now each user having its own home directory. So if you are considering the client server architecture, if you are considering that there is one server and multiple clients are there, in that case, suppose 5 clients are there and one server is there. Suppose first client that enter pwd, then his directory, current working directory is different because his username is different. Same way for another client, the pwd command will give you different output because that directory is the current directory for that client, right? So each and every client having their own home directory, and accordingly pwd command will give the output. Now the second command, that is the date command. As you already aware, in the Windows operating system, whenever in the command prompt you are entering the date, it will give you current date and time. Same way here in Linux operating system, whenever you are entering this command, it will give you the current date and time. Now suppose you want to change the date and time, it is also allowed here to change the date and time. Whatever the system date and time, that will be displayed here. So suppose your system date and time is wrong, then this command will display you the wrong date and time. If your system time is currently synchronized with the latest date and time, in that case this command will give you the current or latest date and time. So the syntax for this command is date, then after dollar, that represent the starting of the command. So whenever you are starting the terminal, so it prompt will be starts with the dollar, then after you have to write the command. So date command, then after option and the format. So you have to enter some specific format of date. In that case, it can be also allowed. You already aware that the long format of date, short format of date, in some of the date format, the year that can be in the 4 digit, in some of the date format it is of 2 digits, month that is in the July, say for example, and some for say for example in some it is the numbers. Suppose you want to display the current time in hour, minutes and second in the long time. So all these things that can be managed in the format options. So these are the optional. It is not mandatory. Whenever you are entering the date command, just it will display the current date and time. But if you want to represent some specific format of date, in that case you have to use this option and format. So these are the basic formats available. If you want to display only the month, then you can write plus modulo sign or percentage sign and then after small f. As we already aware that the Linux operating system, it is case sensitive. So mind well, you must have to use the syntax as it is. Small m and capital M both having some different meaning, they will produce different output. So if you are entering the small m, then it will display the month, H that is the month name, Y that is last 2 digit of the year, H that is the hours, capital M that is minutes, capital S seconds, capital D date, capital Y 4 digits of the year. So we are moving with the terminal. You can see the practical. If you are entering date command, it will display the current date and time. This is the standard time, standard format. If you are requiring some specific format, in that case, as we have discussed, you have to use some specific format options for that. So you can write date, then after you can write plus sign, then modulo sign, say for example small m. So you can see it will display the 2 digit of month, that is the current month. Capital D, it will display the date. It will display the month digits. So these are the multiple options available. Whatever the requirement, accordingly you can use from this table. Now the next command is who command. So basically two variations are there. One is simple who command and another is who am I. M and I are the arguments. This is not mandatory. But what is the difference? So if you are known to that client server architecture, there is one server and multiple clients. So suppose there is a server of Red Hat Linux or Kali Linux and multiple clients are working on that server. So multiple users are there currently. So whenever you are entering who command, in that case, whatever the number of users that are currently logged in to that particular server, all the users are listed here with the help of who command. So who command gives you the output of all the current users for particular server or particular Linux operating system. If you want to see only your information that you are logged in that case you have to use with this command argument m and I, who am I. So first of all we can see that who command, that is the list of users that are currently logged in. It will return the username, terminal, login time information. The user, suppose for some of the time the idle, then that idle time that will be also mentioned by this command. The terminal, that information that can be also provided by this command. All the terminals are stored in the device directory, that is / and dev. As we have discussed that all the hardware devices that are working as a file system in the Linux or Unix operating system. So all those devices are as a file in this device directory. So actually in this who command, whatever your terminal name, that will be displayed by this who command also. Then after, generally it will monitor whatever the users that are currently logged in and who are the idle users, that can be also seen by this command also. Then after, the options that we have discussed, these are not the mandatory. If you are using only who command, then it will just list out the user which are currently logged in. But suppose you are requiring the header information and the user idle information, from how much time that particular user is idle, in that case you are requiring to use this U. So H, that represent the header information, that is the terminal name, then after the time at which the user is idle, terminal name. These are all the heading information, process identification number, that can be seen by this option. Just user is inactive for more than 24 hours, then it is displayed as old. What is it means? Say for example, you are currently using the system and then after you are leaving the system and the time is more than 24 hours that can be passed, so that user, that will be considering as old. Same way, suppose some user is idle for 30 minutes, then it can be also marked in the column, that is idle column, for how much time that particular user is inactive. That doesn't mean that it is logged out, but it is inactive. Then PID, that is process identification number, currently it will also display by this command also. Another alternative that we have discussed, the variation, that is MI, the difference in who command, all the users that can currently logged in, that are listed. But suppose you are requiring any specific user information, that is you are currently logged in, so that will be displayed in a single user format. So it will display only the one user information, that is you are currently logged in. Now the next command is password command. The command is PASSWD. The command is password command. If you want to change password, in that case you have to use this password. So whenever you are entering this command, it will prompt you for the old password. So you have to enter the old password first, then after it will prompt you for the new password. So in that case you have to change your password, you have to modify your password, and then after pressing the enter, the system will change your password. So this way you can modify the password with the help of password command. Now you can see here, whenever you are executing this command, so it will display first Unix password or Linux password, that is the current password or old password. Whenever you are typing, so password never shows anything, but you have to type, you have to press any keystrokes from the keyboard, whatever your password is, and then after, whenever you are typing your old password, you have to press enter. Then after it will prompt for the new password. If you want to change password, in that case you have to modify your password. If you don't want to change, in that case simply press the enter. So this way you can modify your password. Now basically here also the authenticity or the restriction, that can be also taken care of by the Linux operating system or the Unix operating system. Suppose your password is not sufficient, characters are not there, if it is similar to the old password, or if you are using some keywords that are used in the Linux or Unix operating system and it is the part of your password, then this cannot be allowed or this can be refused by this Linux operating system. See here, that is the example. Suppose I am trying to enter two short password or whatever the password which are previously used, that are similar type of password. In that case, two similar password or two old ones, such kind of message that can be given. And if I am entering some keyword as a password, in that case the message will be given that it is the directory word. So you should take care about that the password that follows some basic standards. As you already aware, minimum 8 characters, it is the combination of letters, digits or some special symbols. That are the basic conventions that you must have to follow. Now again, this password command, you can change the password. Also, who is the super user or who is the administrator, they can change the password of the other clients or other users also. But for that you are requiring some administrative privileges, and that can be available with the super user. So if you are a super user, you can change the password of other users also. In that case you have to give the command with the password and then after the username. So the system will prompt you to change the password for that user. Also with the administrative or super user privileges, you can activate or deactivate someone which are currently logged in or register as a user. So these are the privileges available to the super users only. So this password command that can be used to modify the password of the system you are currently logged in, or you can change the password of the other user only if you are having the super user privileges. Now the next command is the man command. If you are having some doubt with some command, then the system automatically provides some help on that particular command. So in some of the operating system Linux, some of the variations, this man command will work, and in some of the operating system it doesn't work. In that case you have to use the help command for helping for particular command. So if you want to help for particular command, in that case you have to write simply man, then after the space, and then after the command for which you want to take help from the system. So this main command will display the name, synopsis, descriptions, exit status, some errors, some file, examples of those commands. So all the manuals related with that command, that will be displayed whenever you are using this main command. Now the syntax is main, option and the command name. Option, here it is required because whenever you are using main command without option, it will display the whole manual or the whole help related with that command. But it is sometimes you are not requiring the whole help, the whole manual. You are requiring some basic thing. So you want to filter out those things. So that filter out options that you can try here in the option. So accordingly only those part of those help that will be displayed to that particular user, not the whole content or the whole documentation that will be provided. See, first no option, without option, it will display the whole manual. The example is given main and the printf. Suppose you want to find the help for the printf command, how it can be used, which are the options of printf command, then simply write main and printf. It will display the documentation of printf command. Now suppose you are not requiring the whole documentation, because your help or the documentation that can be divided into multiple sections. So if you want to display only specific section, in that case you have to write the section number here, like main, 2 and intro. So this 2 is the section number that will display, only that section that will be displayed, not the whole documentation. Now suppose you are not knowing that section number and you want to display that command that appears in which section, only those things you are requiring to display. In that case you have to use the hyphen and F, that is for find. So you can write main, that is the help command, then after hyphen or dash F, that is the option and the command name. Say for example ls, here only ls command which present in particular section, only those section that will be displayed here. So these are the variations of the main command. So in today's session we have discussed various basic commands. Okay, with this I conclude my session. In the next session we are continue with some advanced commands of Linux operating system. Thank you.